Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17, 1706, in Boston in what was then known as the Massachusetts Bay Colony. His father, Hosea Franklin, a soap and candle maker, had 17 children, 7 with the first wife, Anne Child, and 10 with the second wife, Abia Folger. Benjamin was the 15th child and the last son. Despite his success at the Boston Latin School, Ben was removed at 10 to work with his father at candle making. But dipping wax and cutting wicks didn't fire his imagination. Perhaps to dissuade him from going to sea as one of his brothers had done, Hosea apprentices Ben at 12 to his brother James at his print shop. Ben took to this like a duck to water, despite his brother's hard treatment. When James refused to publish any of his brother's writing, Ben adopted the pseudonym Mrs. Silence Doggood, and her 14 imaginative and witty letters were published in his brother's newspaper, the New England Courant, to the delight of the readership. But James was angry when it was discovered the letters were his brother's, and Ben abandoned his apprenticeship shortly afterward, escaping to New York, but settling in Philadelphia, which was his home base for the rest of his life. Benjamin Franklin died on April 17, 1790, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at the home of his daughter Sarah Bache. He was 84, suffered from gout, and had complained of ailments for some time, completing the final codicil to his will a little more than a year and a half prior to his death. Franklin had actually written his epitaph when he was 22. The body of B. Franklin, printer. Life, the cover of an old book, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding. Franklin's first job was as an assistant to his father's candle-making business, a task which seems to have bored him. Franklin then moved into the printing business, first working under his brother and then plying the trade in Philadelphia. Franklin's work as an inventor rested mainly in electrical theory, a passion perhaps best exemplified by his famous kite experiment. Additionally, Franklin tried his hand at entrepreneurship with the development of the Franklin stove. Throughout his adult life, Franklin was busy writing letters, pamphlets, and other literature, some of the most notable being his infamous Silence Doggood letters in the financially lucrative Poor Richard's Almanac. In the 1730s, Franklin's wealth and prestige increased due to the addition of several real estate ventures and his appointment to the Pennsylvania State Assembly and the position of Postmaster General of Philadelphia. At the outset of the Revolution, Franklin was a key figure in the Continental Congress, pushing for the independent agenda and helping to draft the Declaration of Independence itself. During the First War, Franklin was the fledgling United States key ambassador to France and was instrumental in securing its financial and military intervention in support of the American cause. After the war, Franklin was also a leading delegate to the Constitutional Convention, the entity that ultimately produced the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Franklin was busy to the end of his life writing, seeing former colleagues and serving the abolitionist cause in Philadelphia. In 1752, on a dark June afternoon in Philadelphia, the 46-year-old Benjamin Franklin decided to fly a kite. With the help of his son, William, they attached his kite to a silk string, tying an iron key at the other end. Next they tied a thin metal wire from the key and inserted the wire into a Leyden jar, a container for storing an electrical charge. Finally, as the sky darkened and a thunderstorm approached, they attached a silk ribbon to the key. Holding on to the kite by the silk ribbon, Ben flew the kite, and once it was aloft, he retreated into a barn so that he would not get wet. the thunderstorm cloud passed over Franklin's kite, whereupon the negative charges in the cloud passed onto the kite, down the wet silk string to the key, and into the jar. Ben, however, was unaffected by the negative charges because he was holding the dry silk ribbon, insulating him from the charges on the key. When he moved his free hand near the iron key, he received a shock. Why? Because the negative charges in the key were so strongly attracted to the positive charges in his body, a spark jumped from the key to his hand. Ben's experiment successfully showed that lightning was static electricity. You can experience the same reaction when you shuffle your feet on a carpet and reach for a metal doorknob. The first thing to note is that Benjamin Franklin did not discover electricity. The principle was known long before that, and primitive capacitors and batteries were already in use by researchers. Static electricity had been known for thousands of years, although never fully understood, with most scientists believing that it was an invisible liquid. Franklin's contribution was that he believed that lightning was a form of static electricity on a huge scale, and designed a number of experiments to try to ascertain the truth. After designing experiments with conducting lightning rods, which proved dangerous, he set upon using a kite. The idea was to fly the kite into the storm of clouds and conduct electricity down the kite string. A key was then attached near the bottom to conduct the electricity and create a charge. The kite was struck by lightning, and when Franklin moved his hand towards the key, a spark jumped across and he felt a shock, proving that lightning was electrical in nature. While this seems like a stupid method, the evidence showed that he actually intended for the electricity to jump into a primitive form of capacitor known as a Leyden jar, and that touching the key was purely accidental. After the experiments with lightning conductors, it would appear that he knew enough about grounding to insulate himself from serious harm. He was also the first scientist to use the term of positive and negative charge, possibly the basis of the myth that he discovered electricity. His discoveries in the field led to further research in the nature of electricity, influencing the inventions of batteries by Volta and the electric motor by Faraday in